Hello and welcome to CSE Issuer Update. I'm Dimitri Giller, and joining me today is Eric Offenberger, CEO at Vext Science, ticker symbol VEXT on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
Great. So let's jump right into it. Can you briefly introduce your company, its mission, and some of the problems that you are trying to solve?
Yeah, Vext is in the U.S. cannabis space. We've been listed on the CSE since 2019. Our primary office is in Phoenix, Arizona. We have a couple of dispensaries there, and our other area is Ohio. So we're limited in our footprint, but we feel like we're in good markets and that they participate well for the cannabis space in the U.S.
Fantastic. And I did want to mention that your 5-year anniversary did come up on May 13th. So congratulations there.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like yesterday to us, but yeah, it's goes quick, doesn't it?
And it's a big milestone as well, right? 5 years in the public space. Okay, so in general, how would you say your organization is set apart from the others in the cannabis industry?
Well, I think one of the things we did early on was we were always focused primarily on the operational aspect of the business. So we didn't try to have a large top-line company. We were more concerned about the cash flow operation and focused more on states and sizes that we thought we could better match up. We didn't have a large capital pool to start with, so we were very cognitive and conscious on how we allocated capital. So that was, one of the limitations we had, but I also think it was one of the things that made us a lot more successful as far as being able to grow and keep a good balance sheet. So we really always focused on our balance sheet, making sure that our debt loads were correct and that we own the asset base. So we've stayed away from sale leasebacks and different financing methods that you've seen people do in the public cannabis space. We avoided those.
And in terms of your target market, can you talk a little bit about that and then the products or services you're providing?
Yeah, we want to be vertical. So in the cannabis space, it really seems like the brand has become the retail operation. And if you're vertical, then you have a lot better control over the channel of distribution and the margin protection, especially as the markets get more mature. So Arizona is a more mature market. Ohio is an emerging market. So as you're in the mature markets, if you're vertical, you can protect your margin a little bit better. In an emerging market, you can support your growth because you can control how much product you put into a wholesale market versus you run through your own retail chain. So that's been really a primary focus of how we've done things and what we really concentrate on when we're looking at how we're going to grow or expand or where we're going to deploy capital.
Great. So aside from the 5-year public listing milestones, what are some of the other recent achievements that you want to bring up today?
Well, we've done some acquisitions in Ohio, and we've consolidated our position there to be more vertical. We've done another private placement at the end of last year that helped us expansion in Ohio. We're excited about the adult use initiative in Ohio. So that's what we've really been focused on and pushing.
Okay. Aside from that, any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, we're looking at, what Kentucky's going to be doing as far as the medical program in Kentucky. We've had a hemp operation there for the last 4 years. So we feel like we understand what that market's all about. And we have some equipment there and some capital assets. So we think we can deploy those a lot quicker and a lot easier. So we're focused on that. But really, we try to, kind of eat the meal in front of us, which is Ohio right now. And then we'll try to go to the next serving, which will be Kentucky probably. And that's kind of how we've approached it.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of activities going on in the various states. Which state do you think has the better prospects going forward? It makes you more excited?
Ohio by far. Ohio is geographically, it's a great state because you don't have like mass concentration of population and major distance between towns. Its medical program was not that well established. It had 180,000. It's got a population of 12 million. So the upside is so much significant there. And we're really excited about the opportunity in Ohio. I think it'll end up being one of the best markets in the States. And they've done a good job. The state's done a really good job in how they regulated that market, how they've set up to go to adult use, and that they've been very thoughtful.
And is there any specific model that they're following? Is it more or less aligned with Canada, what we did here?
No, it's not. It's more aligned. It looks to be similar to some aspects of Illinois, some aspects of Missouri, some aspects of Pennsylvania. They've been able to look and see what really has been successful and what's made a program work and try to avoid the things that haven't. So they've controlled the cultivation assets so that it's not an unlimited cultivation. They're being thoughtful about how they do the retail. They're moved it into the commerce department. The person that's heading it is very friendly towards the customer base and friendly towards the retail manufacturing base. So he's really reached a nice balance. It seems to have, he's got a really pro-business sense and pro-consumer sense. So he's got a nice balance in his approach.
Right. So it sounds like they're a close follower as opposed to the trailblazer philosophy there.
Yes, exactly. I think he's smart in that the states looked at what's been successful and said, hey, we don't need to invent anything. We can look at what's been successful, adopt it. What's not been, stay away from it. So that's nice. And really, that's nice because they're down the road of coming into this industry's been, we've been in the space in cannabis for 13 years now, 14 years. So a long time, and we've seen a lot of evolution in it. So we've learned and adapted on how we do things. And it's fun to see a state that actually looks at that history too and says, let's make our structure, more proactive and, positive.
Fantastic. So switching gears a little bit, focusing back on Vext Science, how do you foster innovation and stay competitive in this market, which we've seen to be very competitive in general?
Yeah, I think you have to approach it from the standpoint of it's a consumer product, and it's obviously the consumer's very stressed right now economically with inflation and all the other pressures. So you got to be very cognitive of your pricing component and your internal cost component. So you've got, from my perspective, experience is really nice, which means I'm older. And I've been doing this kind of stuff for a while. The last time I saw a market similar to this was probably in the early 80s, where you had inflationary pricing, consumer pressure, and you end up in that type of a thing. And you've got an oversupply in some of the markets, which makes it very challenging because in theory you have a limited distribution point, right? So that's where we said that the retail door becomes that. So that's been the challenge of the market, but also the exciting part of the market because we haven't seen that. Now, to me, I've always approached the cannabis space from the standpoint of you have the high regulation to it, but it's really a manufacturing distribution of a consumer product. It's what I've done my whole career. So, we never really got too focused on, hey, we've got the best product and the premium and everything. We knew the consumer would be very price sensitive. Quality becomes an expectation. It's not a differential, that quickly goes away, that people now have been in the space long enough that this differential of quality or stuff, it's really gone away. It's very price sensitive and the convenience of how quickly somebody can get in and out of your store. The same thing we all look for in consumers, right? And when we're consuming, so it's no different that way. And then it also follows the market trends. So, you watch the U.S. consumer, they're trading down, so they're more price sensitive than they have been. That's why you see it on the Walmart side, the retail side. The challenge in the U.S. cannabis, though, is we can't really participate in a lot of the financial markets as far as credit card transactions. It's a little bit more of a challenge for that consumer and for them allocating their funds, right?
It really is coming down to the typical consumer-led business, right? Same quality issues that are no longer the driver of sales, right? It's comes down to service as the key.
Yeah, and let's face it, it's a subjective product. It's not like it has a standard that says this is A grade, this is B grade, this is C grade. It's not like a diamond or an egg or some other food product or consumer product where there's a national standard, right? It's a perception standard. And really, that's why the retail's become so critical to this, because it's that consumer interface that you have with the bud tender or whatnot. And that's similar to probably in Canada, that's really the person that's doing a lot of influencing and a lot of driving of the product.
And just speaking of other consumers as well, how do you foster that relationship and keep them engaged with your products?
We offer loyalty programs. We'll target promotional specials and stuff along those lines. We try to offer speedier service, the online things, making it easy for the consumer to do business with you, right? So that's one of the things we focus on, is trying to make it easy for the consumer. And we pay attention to what we get on Google reviews and work with our staff a lot on trying to, ensure that they know what the product lines are and things along those lines. The consumer, though, shops cannabis, from what we've been seeing in the urban centers, similar to how they shop a convenience market. So, up in Canada, you have the Tom Hortons. So, you can see how they'll disperse a Tom Horton. They're trying not to be within 5 miles of each other or something along those lines. We see that the consumer's relatively sticky within that 5-mile radius, because the pricing is a commodity. So it's relatively the same. As long as the service is good, they get the products they want, and they feel like the people care about them being there. The customer's sticky. So the retention on the on the customer base is good. Now, in Ohio, we have some rural stores. We notice that demographic changes a little bit, and you see them more planning their shopping versus they're in the area all the time, right? So they might come in less frequently, but larger purchase, similar to like what they would go to the grocery store or something along those lines. So that's one of the interesting things for us, is we do have multiple demographics we're servicing, and you can see the difference in the customer patterns.
Interesting. So there's definitely some changes there in the customer behavior over the past 5 years.
Yeah, and we're fortunate that the stores we have in Arizona are located in really nice markets. We find that this is we like to be in a certain demographic, and we try to locate our stores there. We want more of a, less of a white collar background, but more of a working class industrial type of area. They tend to be more frequent shoppers and stuff along those lines, and we gear our business towards that.
Fantastic. Let's take a step back and look from 5 years out in the long-term view. What are some of your goals, and how would you approach them and try to achieve?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we've always built the company with the intention that the balance sheet, we think that the balance sheet was the key to the company, and that as the industry evolved and stuff along those lines, it would be like multiple industries. So the first consolidation and the first wave in this industry, we really weren't a part of that. That was 2017, 2018-ish frame to 2020, right before COVID. And you saw a lot of movement and stuff like that. And, then you see the fallout, and everybody's looking for size, and then they start going, well, man, we're not making any money, our cash flows aren't good. And they focus on operations and they retrench. We didn't have to do that. So we think there's going to be another wave in cannabis. And we think that if you build the company right, Vext will be a good vehicle for that, whether it's a consolidator or it gets consolidated. As long as that, you build the company with that intent, you can then do pretty much, you have flexibility. And that's what we always wanted, was flexibility to be able to take and be a participant on the right end of it in the second wave. We think the third wave, usually on an industry that's starting and consolidating, and that it's not as beneficial to the shareholder. So we figured the second wave is going to be beneficial to the shareholder, and that's what we're after. And that also includes the stakeholders of the employees. We think it's in their best interest too, to have a company that's solid like that.
Absolutely. Great. So where can people go to find out more information about Vext Science?
Well, I think our website's really well done. It's vexscience.com. We have all our postings and talk a little bit about the brands and stuff along those lines. You can follow us on the typical social media platforms under the Vape and brand, or under the Vext Science brand. And they do a good job. The IR firm does a really good job of putting information out there that's, useful for investors and useful for people looking at the company and trying to find out information. Obviously, we like to do these types of things too. So I think these are valuable, that it gives people an exposure to the company. So we're always available.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was Eric Offenberger, CEO of Vext Science. And again, they're listed on the CSE under the ticker symbol VEXT. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.